There is a moment, and it happens faster than you think, faster than a sentence completes, faster than a handshake ends, where every person you have ever met made a calculation about you, weak or dangerous, someone to test or someone to respect, and they made it before you finished your first sentence. Not after a long conversation, not after watching you handle a crisis. In the first 4 seconds of contact, the human brain runs a threat assessment, so fast and so precise that by the time you finished your first sentence, the verdict was already written, and most men spend the rest of the relationship trying to recover from a first impression they never even knew they were making. You have been assessed today, yesterday, in every meeting, every introduction, every moment you walked into a room and opened your mouth, or stayed silent, or reacted to something you should not have reacted to. And in each of those moments, without a single word being spoken about it, the person across from you answered a question about you that you did not know was being asked: weak or dangerous. Those are the only 2 categories that matter in the primal hierarchy of human social judgment. Every other impression, likable, intelligent, funny, successful, is secondary. The brain decides safety before it decides anything else. And the man who is perceived as dangerous, not threatening, dangerous, the kind of man who carries consequence, moves through the world differently than the man who is perceived as safe to dismiss. Niccolo Machiavelli understood this at a level that made him one of the most feared thinkers in European history, not because he invented cruelty, but because he refused to pretend that human beings operate the way they claim to operate, and he documented the real mechanics with a precision so uncomfortable that the Vatican banned his work for 2 centuries, while the most powerful rulers on the continent kept private copies beside their beds. He wrote one line that contains the entire psychology of what this video is about, and once you hear it, you will understand exactly why you have been losing evaluations you never knew were happening. Men judge generally more by the eye than by the hand, because it belongs to everybody to see you, to few to come in touch with you. He was not writing about appearance, he was writing about signal, the specific, involuntary behavioral signals that your body, your voice, your reactions and your silences broadcast into every room you enter. Signals that other people's nervous systems read and classify in seconds, long before their conscious mind has formed a single opinion about you. What I am about to show you is the exact mechanics of that 4-second window, what triggers the weak verdict, what triggers the dangerous verdict, and precisely what you can do to ensure the assessment never goes against you again. And the question this video is going to answer precisely, specifically, and permanently is whether you are controlling what they read. Let us start with the biology, because this is where most people get it wrong. They think the judgment is social, they think it is cultural, they think it is based on status signals, what you wear, what you drive, what your title is. It is none of those things. It is neurological. The human brain has a structure called the amygdala, an ancient pre-rational threat detection system that processes incoming social information before your conscious mind has any access to it. It operates on a timeline of approximately 100 milliseconds. In that window, before you have heard a word, before you have processed a face, your amygdala has already classified the person in front of you. Threat or non-threat, dominant or submissive, someone who carries consequence or someone who does not. This is called pre-conscious social threat appraisal, the automatic, involuntary neural process by which your nervous system evaluates incoming human stimuli before your rational mind engages. You do not decide to run this program. It runs on you, and it runs on the person across from you. They are not judging you consciously. Their nervous system is judging you automatically. And here is the part that should permanently change how you enter every room. The signals their nervous system is reading are not your credentials, your history, or your intentions. It is reading your body, your voice, your reaction time, your stillness or lack of it, the gap between what they do to you and how quickly you respond. These signals are called dominance markers in primate behavioral research, physical and behavioral cues that the mammalian brain reads as indicators of social rank and threat potential. They exist in every culture on Earth. They operated in the courts of Renaissance Florence, exactly the same way they operate in your office, your relationship, and the room you walked into this morning. Machiavelli was not a scientist, but he was a precise observer of the same mechanics. What the neuroscientists mapped with equipment in the 20th century, he mapped with his eyes in the 15th. The first signal that triggers the weak verdict is the one nobody sees coming because it lives in something you have been told is a virtue: explanation. The moment you explain yourself without being asked, the moment you justify a decision, defend a position, or provide context that nobody requested, you broadcast something to the human nervous system that no amount of confidence in the content of your explanation can undo. You broadcast the need for approval. And the need for approval is the single most reliable indicator the primal brain uses to classify someone as non-threatening. When you explain yourself unprompted, you are signaling that the other person's opinion of your decision matters enough to address preemptively. You are treating their potential judgment as a court you are accountable to. You are, at the level of pure social signal, asking for a verdict, and asking for a verdict is the behavioral posture of a man who is not certain he will win it. This is called justification-seeking behavior in behavioral psychology, the automatic pattern of providing explanations not because they are requested or operationally necessary, but because the internal anxiety about being misunderstood is too uncomfortable to sit with. It is exhausting to watch, and it is lethal to status. Here is the scenario. You make a decision at work. You changed the timeline on a project. Someone senior notices and asks about it casually. The weak version: yeah, I changed it because the original timeline was unrealistic, given the resources we had available, and I also factored in the holidays and I didn't want to put the team under unnecessary pressure. By the fourth clause of that sentence, the person who asked has already filed you. Not because the reasoning was wrong, because the volume of the reasoning communicated something the reasoning itself could not override. I am not confident this was the right call, and I need you to confirm it was. The dangerous version: the timeline needed to change. The new one is better. 3 words per sentence. 0 apology. 0 justification. The decision exists. It does not require defense. That response does not just communicate confidence in the decision. It communicates that your decisions do not require the other person's validation to stand. Machiavelli wrote, "One who deceives will always find those who allow themselves to be deceived." The man who performs certainty, even when certainty is not fully present, will always find people who accept the performance as reality. Because the human brain does not fact-check confidence, it accepts it as signal. Stop explaining. Start stating. Now here is where it gets darker. Because the second signal that destroys the dangerous assessment is not what you do in a confrontation. It is what you do in the 3 seconds before you respond to anything. Your reaction speed. Most men do not understand that the time between stimulus and response is one of the most powerful dominant signals. The human nervous system reads: a man who reacts immediately, who responds to a provocation, a question, or a challenge, the instant it lands, communicates something at the neurological level that cannot be undone with the content of the response. He communicates that the other person has access to his nervous system, and access is power. In social dominance research, this is called reactive latency, the measurable delay between an incoming social stimulus and the behavioral response it produces. In primate hierarchies, dominant animals have longer reactive latency. They do not flinch at every provocation, they respond at their own pace, which communicates that the incoming stimulus was not threatening enough to require urgent processing. Subordinate animals react immediately, because for them, every incoming stimulus is a potential threat that requires instant attention. You are doing the subordinate behavior. Every time someone says something provocative and you respond immediately, every time someone challenges you and you counterpunch within a second, you are communicating to the primal brain of everyone watching. This man can be moved. This man is reactive. This man can be controlled by the inputs I send him. A reactive man is a predictable man, and a predictable man is a manageable man. Think about the most genuinely intimidating people you have encountered in your life. Not the loudest, not the most aggressive, the ones who made you slightly uncertain about how they would respond, the ones who paused before speaking, not because they were slow, but because the pause itself communicated that your stimulus was being processed at their pace, not yours. That pause is not a technique, it is the behavioral evidence of a man whose internal state is not governed by incoming stimuli. When someone says something designed to provoke you, an insult wrapped in a question, a dismissal disguised as a comment, the instinctive response